Well, welcome to our third community listening session on the City of Portland's fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. This evening, community members will be providing testimony to the council on issues that they would like to see addressed in the city's upcoming budget. My name is Jen Gray O'Connor, and I'll be your facilitator for the evening. I'll start by providing you with a run through of our agenda. First, I'll start by reading two statements on our electronic meetings and rules of conduct. Then I'll pass it to Mayor Wheeler to provide some opening remarks, followed by Budget Director Tim Grew for a Budget 101. After that, we'll hear invited testimony and then community testimony on any topic, followed by council's closing remarks and then some next steps. I want to highlight some additional opportunities for you to have your voice heard. The next one will be Thursday, May 9th from 2 to 5 p.m. and that's the mayor's proposed budget hearing. And then on Wednesday, May 15th from 2 to 5 p.m. will be the approved budget hearing. But of course, at any time, if you would like to provide testimony, you can do so at portland.gov/CBO or by sending an email to budgetcomment@portlandoregon.gov. Okay, next I'm going to read two statements. The first is our electronic meeting statement. Under Portland City Code and state law, the City Council is holding this meeting electronically. All members of council are attending remotely by video and teleconference, and the city has made several avenues available to the public to listen to the audio broadcast of this meeting. This meeting is available to the public on the city's YouTube channel, eGovPDX, as well as portland.gov/video and channel 30. The public can also provide written testimony to council on the budget office website, portland.gov/CBO, and by email at budgetcomment@portlandoregon.gov. Next, I'll read our rules of conduct for the evening. The City Council represents all Portlanders and meets to do the city's business. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during the City Council meeting so that everyone can feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. To participate in this meeting, participants applied to give testimony online. If you did not apply and would like to give testimony to council, please submit the testimony in writing at portland.gov/CBO. When testifying, please state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Declare if you are a lobbyist. If you are representing an organization, please identify it. You'll have 2 minutes to testify, and you'll be timed by staff. When your time is up, you'll be given a verbal warning and then muted when 2 minutes have passed to allow for as much participation as possible. You can see we have a blue sky timer that'll be counting down our time visually as well. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony will not be allowed. If there are disruptions, a warning will be given that further disruption may result in the person being muted or ejected for the remaining of the electronic meeting. Please be aware that all council meetings are recorded. Thank you for helping your fellow Portlanders feel welcome, comfortable, respected, and safe. So again, tonight we're hearing from the public on matters relating to the 2024-2025 budget in order for decision makers to really be informed on this budget and future budget cycles. And with that, I would love to pass it to Mayor Wheeler for some opening remarks.
Great. Thank you, Jen. And I appreciate you facilitating this, our third public budget session tonight. I want to thank everybody who signed up who planning on testifying this evening. We're looking forward to hearing your perspectives on how to address issues facing our city. I also just want to level set here at the start of each of our listening sessions. I think it's helpful to review the larger economic context in which the council is going to be making some of our budgetary decisions. And so you're going to hear briefly from me, then you're going to hear briefly from our budget director, and then we'll jump right into public testimony. The city's fiscal environment, to be blunt, is more constrained this year than we have experienced in recent years, with the financial forecast indicating that there will be no new ongoing resources available and no new one-time funding resources available in fiscal year 24-25. There are several significant issues that the council has to address within the context of this budget, including, but certainly not limited to, legal obligations, things that are funded right off the top. That's things like the Columbia River Levy, the Police Oversight Board that was approved by voters. We have a number of other environmental liabilities that we've agreed that we would fund in past settlements. There's obviously higher personnel costs due to the historic rates of overtime that we're seeing in our first response bureaus, the Fire Bureau, the Police Bureau, the Bureau of Emergency Communications, which is our 911 center, as well as increased labor bargaining costs. We also are in a fairly unique situation in that in 2020, 2021, 2022, we benefited from ARPA dollars, the federal dollars that were issued to state and local government in order to support our operations during COVID. Those dollars are expiring, and therefore, by definition, the programs, the personnel, the policies that were supported by that funding are now in jeopardy as well. We're also seeing significant declines in certain revenue streams within our general fund. The general fund is not the total budget that we have, but the general fund is the discretionary dollars that we have. And we've seen decreases in funding across the board, including our business license tax income. And we've seen in some of our non-general fund bureaus, for example, the Portland Bureau of Transportation and the Bureau of Development Services, which are funded hugely on fee-based revenues. The fees for the services they provide have declined as the demand for those services have declined. We also, of course, have a significant new requirement. You and your wisdom, the voters, have supported creating a new form of government. We have pledged that as the voters have requested, we will have that new form of government up and running on January 1st, 2025, if not sooner. There is a significant amount of expenditure associated with that. Again, that is all general fund, all discretionary dollars. So for these reasons, my budget guidance to all of our bureaus was fairly unwelcome. I think I can say that. None of the budget bureau directors wanted to see these constraints, but we required a 5% constraint reduction across the board to reflect these increased costs and the lack of new resources. We accepted first response bureaus. So we accepted police and fire and key first response bureaus. As everybody here is aware, the council is tasked with making difficult decisions that will impact service areas in order to meet the most critical needs of Portlanders while balancing the budget under the financial constraints and carrying out voter required mandates, including implementing the new form of government. To be clear, we've heard at the first two sessions about the desires people have to maintain programs that are very important to the community. We hear that desire, but I also want you to know the hard work in this budget isn't funding priorities, it's cutting programs and cutting personnel. If we took all of the 5% constraints that have been suggested by bureaus, and again, as you come to advocate for programs, nothing has been decided, but bureaus have made recommendations based on the constraint that they were requested to make. If we accepted all of those cuts, I still need to find about $20 million in additional reductions just in our general fund budget in order for us to meet our legal obligations to balance the budget. So I just want to be really honest and straightforward, transparent with people that there's no easy way out of this budget. This is probably the toughest budget scenario that I've experienced in my 7+ years as mayor of the city. And we appreciate you taking time out of a busy evening to give us your guidance. So with that, I'll turn it over to Tim. He'll give you a brief primer on where we are currently in the budget process. Then we're just going to open it up. Jen's going to lead us, as she always does, through your public testimony. But I'll turn it over to Director Grew, our city budget director. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, commissioners and our public participants. My name is Tim Grew, and I am the city's budget director. I'm going to provide you with a very high-level overview of how we do the budget to help inform and assist your engagement today in this listening session and in the future council deliberations. Next slide, please. First, though, I want to talk a little bit about our government partners. City's not the only entity providing important public services to the Portlanders. We partner with our local and regional governments to provide comprehensive services to our communities. The county, which for Portland includes Multnomah and Washington counties, primarily provide human and public health services, libraries, the district attorney's office, management of the jail, as well as parole and probation systems, among other services. TriMet provides our buses, light rail services in the greater Portland region. And Metro plans for our future of the Portland region and provides parks and services that cross city and county lines. And of course, then there's the public service schools that are also important jurisdictional partners. Next slide. This slide shows the service areas of the city. I should note that the city organizes our bureaus and services into 7 major areas, all pictured on this slide. As I will discuss later in the presentation, these service areas will be revised to reflect the new charter organizational structure and are the basis for developing the 24-25 budget. Transportation manages traffic infrastructure, parking, the streetcars, locally owned roads. Public utilities provide our water, sewer, and stormwater services. Public safety includes police, fire, 911 call taking, and also our emergency management services. Portland Parks and Recreation is a single bureau that maintains our parks and recreation facilities, manages the children's levy, golf courses, and even a raceway. Community development includes economic development, planning, sustainability, and affordable housing programs. Finally, the city support services include all of those back office functions that support frontline services. Next slide, please. This slide shows the types of funds included in the budget. Budget conversations and decisions often focus on what is called the general discretionary resources, which was referenced by the mayor, as these resources can be allocated to programs with few restrictions. But of the total city budget, only about 10% comprise discretionary resources. It's important to remember that as we talk about the general fund discretionary allocations, we are only talking about a relatively small piece of the overall city budget. 90% of city resources are dedicated to restricted resources such as the utility service fees, grants, bond debt, dedicated tax levies such as the children's levy that support programs and capital projects. Next slide, please. This slide illustrates what is included in the general fund for both revenues and expenditures that contribute to balancing the budget. Primary general fund revenues include property taxes, licenses and fees, business license taxes, and state and federal shared revenues, and also some grants. The primary expenditures are for positions, materials and services, as well as capital projects and capital equipment. Over the course of the fiscal year, the amount we spend cannot be more than the amounts of revenue we collect, which means that we must balance our expense and revenues throughout the fiscal year. Next slide, please. As shown in this slide, when revenues are greater than expenses, the city has more flexibility on how to spend its resources. In developing a budget, the city can choose to add new programs, expand existing programs, shore up financial reserves, or invest in one-time projects. Sometimes the city expects revenues to be greater than our expenses over a long period of time. That allows the city, in some cases, to expand ongoing services. Other times, the city may only have one-time resources that can be used for one-time expenses such as capital projects. Next slide. As shown in this slide, when expected expenditures are greater than what we expect to collect in revenues, we need to reduce costs. And that is the case that the city is confronting now. When this happens, this could mean we reduce positions, reduce programs, find efficiencies, or draw down on our financial reserves. In particularly tight years, it might mean that the city must do less than it has been doing by eliminating and reducing services. This is services. The budget process is where city bureaus put forward ideas to reduce their expenditures for consideration by the mayor and council. It is the mayor and council that approve the budget. Next slide, please. Thank you. As indicated in this chart, the general fund forecast shows that revenues and expenditures will continue to be challenging for several more years. Basically, revenues and expenditures will be approximately the same during this period of time. This will make it difficult to not just fund current services, but also to meet new requirements. So the bottom line is that the city has several years in which it's going to have challenges in its budgeting. Next slide, please. This chart shows the allocation of general fund and non-general fund services for the requested budget. The largest area of the general budget is for public safety, including fire and police. The second largest area is for vibrant communities, which includes parks and recreation. For the non-general fund budget, the largest portion of the public work portion is for public works, which provides water and sewer services, followed by community, economic, and development services. Next slide, please. The FY 24-25 budget will be a transition year with the commissioners' form of government moving to the charter-approved new government structure. The first part of this slide on the left shows how the city has traditionally allocated its budget based upon commissioner portfolios and assigned bureaus. The second part includes, on the right, includes the future structure of the budget with new service areas. For the 24-25 budget, the first half of the year will be under the current form of government, but with some transitions. The second half will be with the chief administrator, mayor, and 12-member council. Next slide, please. As can be seen in this slide, the budget with the charter reform will transition from a focus on bureaus to new service areas. The proposed budget will also transition from the mayor, development by the new chief administrator and mayor. The approved and adopted budgets will transition from the commissioner form of government to the approval by the 12-member council, with the mayor having only authority to vote in the event of a tie. For the current budget process, the mayor and council are already taking action to move toward this new process. Next slide. This completes our overview of the city budget process. You can contact us at the city budget office at www.portland.gov/CBO or by sending us an email at citybudgetoffice@portlandoregon.gov. And I thank you for your attention.
All right, thank you, Tim. Commissioner Gonzalez, I understand you have invited testimony tonight. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe we have Isaac McClellan.
Good evening, Mayor Wheeler and City Council. My name is Isaac McLennan. I'm the president of the Portland Firefighter Association. I'm also a resident here at the Roseway neighborhood in Northeast Portland. First, I'd like to thank all of our public safety first responders for the dedication to keeping our community safe, specifically Portland Street Response, Community Health Assess and Treat, and our firefighters. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Gonzalez for this opportunity to speak to you all. I'm here to ask council to support the full funding of Portland Fire and Rescue. While I understand the budget outlook as presented, and I also understand the projected revenue shortfalls. But what I'm asking council to do is lean into programs that not only work, but save lives. Specifically, I'm concerned about proposals that I've heard about limiting the ability of Portland Fire and Rescue to call back firefighters to work. I just want to be clear that, firefighters care deeply about this community, and we care about every neighborhood that we work in, every fire station in every neighborhood. And we need to make sure that the right number of firefighters is in each station. To me, it's not about budgets and numbers. And I understand that's the job of City Council, and I understand that this is going to be an extremely difficult situation, as the mayor just pointed out in the beginning. But what we see on the front line as firefighters is the ability for us to save lives, and we can only do that if we are in those neighborhood fire stations. Every station needs the right number of firefighters, and reducing the ability of Portland Fire and Rescue to limit the ability to hire back firefighters when a vacancy occurs because somebody's off sick or on other approved leave is just not acceptable. And the path forward, of course, is to make sure we have the right number of firefighters, hiring more firefighters so that we reduce the need to call back firefighters off duty in overtime. So thank you for this opportunity to speak, Mayor Wheeler and fellow City Council members. I really appreciate this time. And I know I'm looking forward to hearing the rest of the testimony today.
Thank you. Colleagues, does anybody else have invited testimony? All right, with that, then we'll turn it over to Jen to
Mayor?
facilitate. Yes,
I have Preston Course from Home Builders, who's also invited testimony.
got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and the entire council for having me. My name is Preston Korst. I am the Director of Government Affairs at the Home Building Association of Greater Portland. I'm here tonight to encourage council to allocate the city's precious and, as we heard, limited general fund dollars towards a critical and often overlooked program that the city and function that the city tackles, and that is the permitting offices. So following this past fall's layoff of more than 70 staff in the Bureau of Development Services, HBA and a coalition of partners in the private and nonprofit sector engaged in conversations with BDS leadership and council offices. And our goal was simple. It was to stabilize the Bureau and to improve the city's permitting services to get more housing built quicker. And as we heard that the overwhelming majority of the Bureau of Development Services budget, I think it's 97%, is funded through permitting fees directly. That funding model is not sustainable for how volatile the development and capital markets can be. So together we worked with the city to identify solutions that we believe will help stabilize permitting services and prevent further layoffs. This included the realized need for a permit fee increase of up to 8% to help fill a share of the existing fund gap, which we believe will help get us there. However, that added revenue simply is not enough to prevent further layoffs and prevent further deterioration of permitting services. So what we're hoping is that the city will support the Bureau of Development Services funding request of at least $6 million to help fill the remaining gap and prevent further layoffs in the Permitting Bureau. And I want to call to attention two things that we really want to prevent seeing. And the first of which, we don't want to see a significant backslide in the city's commendable progress made by the Permit Improvement Task Force, which has seen significant strides since it's been established, which kudos to council for setting that up in the first place. And secondly, we want to ensure that any consolidation efforts that are happening already that are currently being implemented are done in a way that sets the new permitting agency, whatever it's called, up for long-term success. So we encourage council to share our goal in seeing more funding directed to an essential and, again, often overlooked function of the city that keeps housing built and keeps our economic engine churning. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other invited testimonies? All right, very good. Jen, we'll turn this over to you.
Wonderful, thank you. So just a reminder, we have a lot of testimony tonight and we have a lot of really extremely important topics to cover. So I want to remind everyone to please stop when our timekeeper calls time. And also to follow our rules of conduct for respectful communication. If you're in violation of those rules, just as a reminder, I'll give you a reminder, and then if that behavior continues, then you'll be muted or possibly removed. A lot of people have signed up today to testify, and we want to make sure that those who are here all get to be heard. So again, you'll have 2 minutes to testify. A timekeeper will call time at testimony, and then when our timekeeper says time at 2 minutes, please conclude your comments. If you continue beyond 2 minutes and 20 seconds, then you'll be muted. If you're joining by phone, you can push *6 to mute or unmute. You'll receive an invitation to be a panelist shortly before your name is called. Please accept that invitation and you'll be able to unmute yourself and share your video if you so choose. So again, remember that you'll be invited to unmute when you're called to participate. So you can also use the raise hand function if you need any assistance while you are in the participant pool. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague Jeremiah to call our first testifiers.
Great, thank you, Jen. So I'll be calling names in groups of 3 or 4. And so to give you a chance to get ready and unmute yourself when you're ready to testify. We'll start with the first 3. It would be by Terry Harris, Ross Conklin, and Soren Underdahl. We'll start by hearing from Terry.
Oh, great. I'm Terry Harris. I'm from Hillsdale. I'm a member of the Government Transition Advisory Committee, but I don't speak for GTAC today, speaking only for myself. At your last session, I talked about the need to fund staffing for the next mayor and council to at least a basic functional level. I remain deeply concerned that the proposed budget would cripple the new government in its infancy. Still, I appreciate the difficulty of your job at this point. I heard your comments at the end of the last session, namely that you were hearing requests for funding, but weren't hearing suggestions for cuts. The problem, of course, is that there are big structural changes in both revenue and expenditures that are needed to provide true financial resilience to the city. That work will take longer than the few weeks remaining in this process, in which basically we're plugging holes in this year's spreadsheet. Nevertheless, here are a couple of ideas. First, the proposed budget calls for a 5% reduction in general fund requests, except public safety bureaus. But holding entire public safety bureaus harmless is overly broad. Back office administration, business services, and miscellaneous non-critical spending could and should be subject to that 5% reduction. Second, at this point in the transition, you should be able to budget some consolidation efficiencies. For example, you're planning for unified city communications, which suggests to me surplus communications spending in far-flung bureaus could be eliminated or reduced. You should go ahead and budget for some of these consolidations. Third, and don't take this personally, but you're fully funding deputy city administrators in this budget. By the logic and theory of the charter amendments, staffing to the mayor and individual commissioners in charge could be reduced substantially. I wanted to suggest reductions to levels proposed for the new council, but I imagine you would think that to be unreasonable. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Ross.
Hello, my name is Ross Conklin. I live in Southeast Portland, and I'm testifying today or talking today about as a supporter of the Friends of Portland Street Response to echo their advocacy in changes to preserve that program. I know we're talking about all the cuts we need to make, and we've talked about public safety a lot here. And in all of those conversations, Portland Street Response, which in my opinion is a critical public safety organization, has not been mentioned. I know their funding is weird and comes from different places, but they've been a critical and good service for the city in their time, and I believe they need to be fully funded, or at least kept at their current funding level as much as possible, and should be fought for as an organization. I wanted to briefly share a story about how they recently helped my wife and I support an unhoused person. We tried to help out an unhoused person on the street, and we did get him back on his meds and tried to get him connected to services, which was a whole ordeal as far as navigating the various county and city and other services on our own as just individuals. He eventually went into a manic episode. We were struggling to maintain control of the situation, and Portland Street Response was there when we called. They showed up quickly, they calmed him down, they gave him a cup of noodles, and they provided, frankly, all the services we had been spending a couple of days trying to get this man connected to. And they were great. They calmed down the situation and got everybody everything they needed. They helped this man. He's now on his way to rehab again. And I cannot speak more highly of them as professionals and as part of the public safety that we're trying to build in our city. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you all.
Thank you. And next we'll have Soren.
Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing us the opportunity to share and engage in these difficult budget process. My name is Soren Underdahl. I'm here in collaboration with the Friends of Portland Street Response. I'm here today to show support for a program that I have personally seen change the lives of members in my community, and also for prioritizing those services that make such a large difference in the lives of Portlanders. I live downtown, just blocks from what once was one of the billboards that helped inform my neighbors of the purpose and impact of Portland Street Response. And that billboard was made more poignant by the numerous times that I saw a PSR van responding to calls on that very block and in the surrounding neighborhood. The positive response from the community to the PSR team, particularly from those experiencing crisis, was palpably positive. And I'm sad to have to say that in the past tense, because the PSR team has been noticeably absent in recent months, in no small part, I suspect, due to the high turnover and hiring freezes imposed on the program. PSR, when it was at its height, was a great example of the effective and direct services the city can provide to Portlanders, And a reminder of the motto I still see emblazoned on our city's vehicles: we are the city that works. Despite the budgetary challenges our city is facing, fully funding PSR and continuing to invest in the city government's ability to directly impact the lives of every citizen in our city is the way we uphold that motto and ensure we leave a better Portland for our children. Thank you for your time and continued commitment to the city.
Thank you. Our next three testimonies this evening would be by Destiny Magana Pablo, Angelita Murillo, and Zach Carroll. We'll start off with Destiny.
Hi, actually I'm presenting or testifying with two others. First would be Zach Curl, second Juliet Heim, and then I would end.
Okay, in that case, can we move on to Angelita?
Thank you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'll begin then. Mayor Wheeler and members of the City Council, thank you for hearing our testimony on the budget today. Managing the budget is an unenviable job, and at the beginning, you emphasized that the budget is tight this year. I do want to point out that City Council created a tax-free zone in downtown Portland for big businesses at the expense of providing services for regular Portlanders just last year. To me, that is the greatest example of socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor. But onto my real testimony. My name is Angelita Murillo, and I am here to ask you to fully fund Portland Street Response so that we can modernize our public safety system and give Portlanders the services we deserve. Back in December, I attended the Houseless Day of Remembrance, where Portlanders from all walks of life gathered in downtown, and we lit candles for all of the houseless people that were killed by an uncaring and callous system. These are the preventable deaths that happen when rent is too high, wages are too low, and our public health system is non-existent. There, I talked to a Portland Street Response employee who shared the mental toll that it takes for them to answer calls from people in their most desperate moments and to not have the tools to help them. This employee said something that stuck with me forever, and that is that Portland Street Response has become the face of rejection and disappointment. This is not because the program isn't great or because they're not needed or wanted. This is because our city council has politicized the funding of this program. Political vendettas have taken priority over doing right by Portlanders, and in classic fashion, this iteration of city council has whittled down an effective program to the bare bones. The quality of service has dropped as a result, and the frustration towards the program has gone up. And now you can sit there and say that the community never wanted it at all. We are coming here today to say that we unequivocally do want Portland Street Response. We want Portland Street Response fully funded. We want Portland Street Response to operate citywide 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have an opportunity and an obligation to make sure that your people are getting connected to the right services. So if you love this city and you
Thank you. So I believe we have Juliet on the call right now, Juliet Himes. Whichever the order was for the three of you to go forward with that.
Thanks, Jeremiah. I can go ahead and get started. Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners, my name is Zach Curl. I serve as a co-chair for the Government Transition Advisory Committee, or GTAC, and I'm here with two of my fellow committee members, Juliet Himes, one of our incoming co-chairs, and Destiny Magana Pablo, one of our outgoing co-chairs. We wish to present together consecutively this evening. As you know, GTAC is a group of Portlanders that was appointed by you, the mayor and city council, in March of 2023. We serve as the primary community engagement body and advisory body for the city government transition. To date, we have issued 4 sets of recommendations to city leadership, council staffing, onboarding, district offices, and community engagement, all of which have budget implications. On Saturday, you heard from our other fellow committee members about council staffing and onboarding. Today, we'll cover our recommendations on district offices and community engagement. We'll begin with district offices. We researched more than a dozen peer cities and found that only a few cities with district representation have in-district offices. Some of these cities that we asked that did not have in-district offices explained that they did not because of cost and security concerns of running a separate facility year-round. This research confirms that findings of the Division of Asset Management, which estimated that creating in-district offices for Portland with the specifications required by your resolution 37368 would cost between $600,000 and $1.8 million in one-time capital costs and approximately $1.7 million to maintain these assets ongoing. Before we expend substantial funds on in-district offices, GTAC would like to see the city have a better understanding of how to effectively achieve what it sees as the goal of having in-district offices, improving representation of communities historically left out of city hall decision-making, and removing barriers to accessing the city's elected leaders.
Juliet?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Council, and thank you for having me back on behalf of the GTAC. In our discussions of district offices, we agreed that more research is needed before the city funds permanent council offices in each district. We don't yet have a clear definition of either the facility requirements or programming needs. We want to ensure that any funding truly serves the districts and meets the needs of Portlanders. We recommend providing rudimentary in-district offices when new councilors take office, but allowing them to define the permanent office designs. Last month, after substantial discussion, the GTAC voted to forward 4 recommendations. First, the final decision on permanent in-district officers should be left to the future city council. Second, there should be robust community engagement about programming in these offices before the permanent decision. Third, the city should continue ongoing facilities research and scoping of in-district office requirements to best serve the future council. And fourth, temporary low-cost offices should be available in each district beginning January 1, 2025. Based on input from facilities, the GTAC recommends that council cap the total one-time capital investment across all 4 district offices at $150,000 total and $150,000 annually total. We recognize that conversations about district offices and the corresponding issues of representation and access are important and challenging topics. We ask that you invest in both a robust community engagement process to determine what Portlanders want and in temporary low-cost offices in each district beginning January 1, 2025. And I will pass it to Destiny.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, city councilors, commissioners, and mayor. On behalf of GTAC as well, our new district-based council and district offices are part of a larger reformation of community engagement at the city. We believe that your support of systemic change of community engagement will put us on a path to fulfill the promise of an inclusive, transparent, and accountable new government. Despite the city's aspiration to engage the community, a lack of comprehensive, tangible public involvement in our new government concerns us. We observe that the current community engagement efforts are consistently disjointed, ad hoc, and often ineffective. Community engagement is key to fulfilling the stated potential of charter reform. We appreciate your identification of community engagement as a citywide discipline, and we believe council must take the following steps to implement effective community engagement by January 1st, 2025. First, consider hiring an engagement officer as soon as possible. Second, define the community engagement that is essential to the ongoing transition. Third, assess the effectiveness of the community engagement function by establishing clear measures of success. Fourth, allocate appropriate funding levels, considering the full extent of necessary engagement. Fifth, integrate the community engagement discipline with the disciplines of communication, equity, and sustainability. Finally, support a new government culture that embeds community engagement throughout the organization. These steps are necessary to implement effective community engagement, which requires investment. It is unclear where that investment regarding the new community engagement discipline is in the budget. For example, it is our understanding that the requested budget for the city administrator's office does not include the engagement officer, and we would recommend the city does so. We also ask that you identify the resources for the new citywide community engagement discipline. On behalf of GTAC, we thank you for your considerations of our recommendations that support increased representation and access for Portlanders to engage their new city government through our new district-based council and new citywide community engagement discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 3 testimonies this evening would be by Ana Munoz, Emma Hayes, and Robin Ye. We'll start off by hearing from Ana.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah, great.
Yes.
Greetings, Mayor Wheeler and City Council members. My name is Ana Munoz, and I'm the Director of Community Engagement and Leadership Development at Latino Network. I have been the facilitator for Academia de Líderes or Leadership Academy for the past 3 years. However, the program has been around since 2010. Here I am once again to ask that you please continue supporting the Community Development Office, more specifically the Diversity and Civic Leadership programs, by stretching the limited funds for our district leadership programs. Please don't fix what is not broken. Don't change what's working, and don't take away from deserving communities. I would like to read some quotes from current and past program participants. Hopefully you'll get a sense of the positive impact the program has on the Latino community and for the city of Portland. Quote, the program equips Spanish-speaking Latinx community members with transformational leadership and civic engagement tools, end quote. Quote, I gain more knowledge about civic engagement to fight for our rights as an immigrant community, end quote. Quote, participating in this beautiful space help us further develop our leadership, and in this way, we can help others, end quote. Quote, I learned the importance of raising my voice to express the safety concerns and crises our young people are experiencing, end quote. Quote, one of the impacts is that we can create a union where we collaborate to obtain social justice and support to establish representation for the Latino community, end quote. I hope you get a clear picture about our leadership program. We don't do our community work for profit. We rely on public funding. We are Portlanders devoted to making Portland an inclusive, safe, and harmonious place to live for all. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next we have Emma.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Emma Hayes. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to you all. I've lived in Portland almost my whole life, and I am here to urge you, honestly, just to beg you, to not cut funding from Portland Street Response, and to, as soon as you are able to, expand it to a 24-hour service and fund it as much as possible. I want you to know that I and so many other people in the city truly understand that funding this year is difficult. And we also understand that Portland Street Response is one of the best ideas that the city has had in a long time. Our city is facing many challenges, but I want to talk about something that didn't happen here, but easily could have. Recently, a 15-year-old boy, Ryan Gaynor, was fatally shot because he was having a mental health episode and was perceived as a threat by a police officer. The whole story is too complex to cover in 2 minutes, but the fact is, if there had been a specifically trained, mental health-oriented response that showed up instead of or in conjunction with the police force that could assess and address his situation differently, this boy might not be dead. Portland already has that response team in place. We cannot afford to lose it. I'm sorry, I'm nervous, but please, we have these systems in place. We have these things in our city. I'm growing up into living in this city, and I see people around me that I know deserve to be treated as human beings. They deserve the care that they need. We cannot have a system that shoots first and asks questions later when we have something in place that could help them. Please do not give up on PSR. Do not cut their funding. Do not give up on us. Thank you so much. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Robin.
Mayor Wheeler, members of council, for the record, my name is Robin Yee and I live in Montevilla. Today, I want to urge council to fully fund and provide administrative infrastructure to expand Portland Street Response program to 24/7 service across the city. Portland Street Response is an innovative emergency response program that assists people in crisis. It's proven to be effective, cost-saving, and popular with the public. But between the cuts proposed, loss of federal funds, and a failure to secure federal Medicaid funding, PSR is looking at a potential 80% cut, dealing a fatal blow to a program that should be expanding, not contracting at this moment. We must continue to modernize our public safety program to respond to the challenges at hand. It is critical to keep PSR as an unarmed standalone emergency response option dispatched through 911. PSR must be fully funded so Portland's residents and small businesses have this tool to respond to the crises on the street, in their neighborhood, and at their storefronts. Thank you for this time and for prioritizing Portland Street Response in this year's budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three testimonies will be by Laura Streep, Alana Bertolini, and Elizabeth Klein. We'll start off with Laura.
Hi there. Thank you. My name is Laura Stribe. I'm here also to advocate for Portland Street Response to be fully funded, but I also want to be creative in finding solutions to fund programs that are essential to the health, safety, and livability of all of our residents. I am a parent, an arts nonprofit executive director, and a board member of the St. John's Business Boosters Association. Our North Portland neighborhood is in great need for the supports that our small businesses and schools need that Portland Street Response can provide. We have had many instances that have needed responses from Portland Street Response and not a police response. Take, for instance, 1 month ago, when a woman disrobed in front of my kid's elementary school and was dancing because she did not get the greeting that she needed. We called 911 and Portland Street Response, but we didn't have any response. So we definitely need funding for those things so that our children and our community can feel safe. But I want to be solutions focused. And so I want you to consider investing in the arts and music industries, because those investments in the arts provide a huge return on investment that brings millions of dollars of revenue and tax revenue for you. I worked on a data project last year that highlighted that nonprofit arts organizations brought in almost $11 million for city revenue. And the music industry in our state is an $8 billion industry and 80% of that was in the Portland metro area. The film industry is also a multi-million-dollar industry. By investing in our creative resources, we can develop an economic base to support much needed and extremely important programming like the Portland Street Response, as well as investing in our people. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Alana. Alana.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me tonight. Mayor, commissioners, I know that you have an especially hard task in front of you. Having served on one of your bureau's budget advisory committees, having helped write public budgets at the state level, I understand how hard a cuts budget is, especially. I apologize, I don't think I introduced myself. My name is Ilana Pertolgini. I live in the Vernon neighborhood in Northeast Portland. As I look at your budget documents, though, I see a number of places where short-term cost savings are made at the expense of long-term stability and long-term costs, in fact, within our city. And I hope that you can address those differently as you move toward a final budget. You've heard about a number of these already tonight. The reliance on and the cutting of overtime in our public safety bureaus, where what we need to be doing is investing in training and recruitment so that we are fully staffed in the areas that are now relying on overtime. The underinvestment in our permitting system, just as you're moving toward a single point of permitting that might help us redevelop our city and bring in the extra revenue that we need. And of course, as you've been hearing from so many community members tonight, Portland Street Response. We're fully funding Portland Street Response as a 24/7 service could in fact help make it more effective and save costs down the road. We know that Portlanders are more likely to use Portland Street Response as a service that they call if they think it will be available. And I have heard from countless Portlanders that right now they're not sure if it is available. The instability there has caused people to not use the service as much as they might otherwise. And as you all know, 24/7 funding will allow us to pull down federal funding, federal match for some of those calls, saving us money in the long run. I hope you look at the long-term benefits of investment in certain areas in this budget, rather than relying just on short-term costs that will cost us more in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Elizabeth.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, great. So I'm Dr. Elizabeth Klein, and I live in Southwest Portland, Bridal Mile neighborhood. And I'm also a member of Moms Demand Action. And I request that you prioritize violence prevention funding in the 2024-25 city budget. Gun violence is the #1 cause of death in children in the United States. Gun violence in the United States is a public health threat to each one of us. Gun violence is preventable and not inevitable. Do not give up. As a mother, a sister whose brother died from gun suicide, and as a family physician, I request your assistance in decreasing gun violence. We must act and advocate for safer communities through community-based violence intervention programs. And we must act now, like our lives depend on it, because our children's lives really do depend on it. Community violence prevention programs currently funded by the city through the Office of Violence Prevention work directly with families and neighborhoods most impacted by gun violence, providing street-level community outreach and conflict mediation, job training, trauma and mental health support, and more. I urge you to maintain at least the Community Violence Intervention Grant funding for community-based organizations in the upcoming budget. The city of Portland needs to stay the course on prevention in order to reduce gun violence. We must sustain funding. The safety of our community, including you and me, depends on it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Our next 3 testimonies will be by Peter Anderson, Ann Anderson, and Sarah Silky. Peter and Ann, I think you both are on the same call, so if you'd like to kick us off.
I'm not sure that we're on. I just see Jeremiah's name. Is it?
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Mayor and members of the council, my name is Peter Anderson. I thank you for this opportunity to speak. I'm coming to speak on behalf of Portland Street Response. I come from we moved to Portland 8 years ago to be closer to our grandchildren. I've gotten very involved in the community. I'm on the pastoral council at St. Andrew Catholic Church and involved in a number of other activities. Back in Massachusetts, where I came from, I was a trial court judge. And in that job, I had the opportunity to encounter many of the people that are helped by Portland Street Response. And I have an understanding of what the needs of this population are from that experience. So I think it's very important, and I urge you very strongly to fully fund Portland Street Response. I've had occasion to call 911 a couple times, and the response from Street Response was terrific. They got there quickly. They sometimes, in one case, they couldn't find the gentleman that I had called about. They called me back and asked, could I see him from where I was? Did I know where he went? They promised to call me back if they found him. It was throughout this whole experience that I came to respect the job that they're doing, and it's one that we can't afford to lose when we have so many people on the streets acting out every day and in need of the kind of intervention that Portland Street Response can do. So thank you for your time.
So is it my turn? My name is Ann Anderson, and I have been working on homeless issues back in Massachusetts from the first time the governor set up a homelessness task force. And so I've been working on these issues until I retired for almost 30 years. What I want to say is there's no question that the city and other entities, government entities, will spend money on homeless people and precariously housed people with mental health and substance abuse problems. The question is how to be effective in our expenditures and reducing the cost, both human and financial. Portland Street Response saves the city money by reducing the other, and I will call them mandatory, because as you'll see when I read off some examples, they're things that the city has to do, regardless of whether they have money or not. So for example, we're going to spend money on people in the ER or transporting people to the ER. We're going to spend money on somebody who's harmed themselves or other people. We're going to spend money on the person who urinates in the library, and so it has to be cleaned up, or other public space. We certainly are going to be spending money on people hauled into court. Portland Street Response, besides serving people where they are and helping them get to a better place, usually, saves money in the longer term, because we don't go ahead and spend useless money dealing on the problem with no real help for the person who's suffering from the problem. So I would say, in a time of fiscal stress like we are in today, we have to make wise financial decisions, and that's what Portland Street Response does. Thanks.
Thank you. Just as a quick reminder to everyone who is registered to provide testimony, please accept the invitation to be a panelist, as that will give you the ability to unmute yourself and share your video if you would like to. So we're moving on now to Sarah.
Hello, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners Maps, Rubio, Gonzalez, and Ryan. My name is Sarah Silky. I use she, they pronouns. I'm a Portland resident living in Southwest Portland. I'm a mother. Thank you really for having this time outside of the standard workday so that people like me can testify without having to take leave from work. I really appreciate it. I, like many others here tonight, am here to ask you to find a way to fully fund Portland Street Response at the $11 to $12 million that is needed. We are in the midst of a public safety crisis brought on by the compounding factors of skyrocketing cost of living, housing shortage, mental health, and drug addiction. Now is not the time to cut funding to any of our first responders, especially not our newest, most innovative and successful. PSR is a modernization of our public safety system. It saves lives, and if we were to fund it for 24/7 service as was intended, the program will bring federal Medicaid funding to help with our budget troubles. PSR needs just 11 million out of our total public safety budget of over 500 million. That is just 2%. I also remind you that PSR is part of our city's proposed settlement agreement after the Department of Justice found that our police force frequently used more force than was necessary with people experiencing mental health illness. Those are fancy words. It's a basic way of saying sometimes people die. You know, you've got a loved one with a mental health crisis and they get shot because the police think they're going to kill them and they're just sick. This is awful. I want to end with the personal note that I have a close relative who is unhoused right now due to mental health issues that were exacerbated by the pandemic. She's terrified of police, and when they show up, she becomes even more difficult to reach. It's essential to have PSR and unarmed mental health professionals that can show up in a crisis. Just one more thing. I understand that something's going to be cut, and I support looking at higher paid staff, echoing Terry Harris's thoughts on reducing the fund for the new DCAs.
Thank you. And next 3 testimonies for this evening would be by Erin Meechan, Debbie Kitchen, and Dave Petikolas. We'll start off with Erin.
Hello, thank you so much. Mayor Wheeler and commissioners, I appreciate your time and allowing me to speak on the support for PSR. I am an advocate for affordable housing. I'm on the Housing Stability Council of Oregon. I'm a ROC member, Resident Organizing for Change. I'm also a CAT leader, Community Alliance of Tenants. And I also work for Eastside Timbers Youth Soccer Program. I have been homeless. I have had housing, affordable housing, and I've met people who work for PSR and spent time with people on the streets of Portland. This is an issue of we need to combine, we need to be collaborative when we're making these decisions about the budget for housing, mental health, substance abuse, et cetera, et cetera. The wraparound services are very, very important. And I think the PSR has done an excellent job of bridging the gap of trust between those that are in crisis and those that are trying to help support that crisis, whether it be the government, police, et cetera, et cetera. PSR is a necessary and mandatory step to be fully funded 24/7. I believe that we could take a moment and take a look at Cahoots there in Eugene, as well as the Elliott Homeless Services over there in Massachusetts, as the Andersons were speaking of Massachusetts. They have a wonderful, very comprehensive program that has medical and all kinds of wraparound services for homeless folks, and they bridge that gap of trust between the police and the people on the streets. I think it's really important that we support this, and I appreciate your time, and I thank you for the intense and very, very hard choices you're going to have to make, but this is mandatory. This is part of our health and wealth. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Debbie, over to you.
Good evening, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. I'm Debbie Kitchen. I live in Sullivan's Gulch. I'm here to support Portland Street Response, fully funding it for 24/7 operations throughout the city. Portland Street Response is an important component of ensuring safety for all, especially as an unarmed emergency response program assisting people experiencing mental or behavioral crises. We need to have better coordination and collaboration across all of our first responder providers. We need to keep Portland Street Response as an unarmed, standalone emergency response option dispatched through 911. One of the benefits is to reduce the number of calls traditionally responded to by police officers where no crime is committed or there is not a threat of violence. This can free up police resources to focus on criminal behavior or violent situations. I've heard from many residents and small businesses who are upset by how long it takes to get a response to crimes when they are reported. We need to optimize how we use all of our resources in public safety to reach better outcomes. Portland Street Response has been successful in its short time of existence, as evidenced by an independent review by Portland State University. It is widely supported throughout the community. I urge City Council to fully fund Portland Street Response and expand operations 24/7 and citywide. Give them the support and resources they need to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Dave Petikolas.
Good evening. My name is Dave Peticola and I live in North Portland, and I'm here to advocate for 2 points in the 2024 budget. First, I support increasing the permitting fees for the Bureau of Development Services and stabilizing the BDS budget. At a time when Portland and Oregon should be increasing its housing production, the layoffs at BDS are moving us in the exact opposite direction. So please stabilize and bolster the BDS budget and prevent any more layoffs at that critical function. Second, I am also here to advocate for sustaining and increasing the funding for Portland Street Response. An unarmed emergency response is a humane and cost-effective way of supporting those in our city suffering a crisis. PSR is a model program that other cities should be following. It would be extremely unwise for Portland to cut funding for PSR at this time. So please support and expand PSR. And thank you very much, Mayor and City Council, for hearing my testimony.
Thank you. Our next 3 testimonies will be by Brad Nahill, Amy Wexler, and Andrea Laugren. We'll start off with Brad.
Hello, Brad Nahill. I'm sorry, Brad Nahill. Thank you so much. I'm going to make some very quick testimony. I wanted to support 2 things that make me really proud to be a resident of Portland, and that's Portland Street Response and the City Climate Fund. I would really like to see Street Response funded fully 24/7 across the city. And I think it's really important to move Portland Street Response, sorry, Kitty, outside of the fire department where it can get the support that it needs, because it clearly has not been getting the support in that department. I also just wanted to say that I'm very frustrated to see the efforts to change the way that the funding of the City Climate Fund has been proposed. I think that fund is a really important thing to meeting the city's climate goals and to funding the frontline communities that are being affected by climate change in our city. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Amy over in the in-person group.
Hi, Mayor Ted Wheeler and Commissioners. I'm here today to urge gun violence prevention funding be prioritized in the 24-25 city budget. My name is Amy Wexler. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the state co-lead for Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I'm also an attorney, a parent, a community member living in the Sabin neighborhood in Northeast Portland, and I care deeply about ending gun violence in our city. In 2023, the homicide rate in Portland was 5 times as high as it was in 2016. And that is despite a 16% drop last year as compared to 2022. We are not going to police or incarcerate our way out of this problem. We need a block by block, person by person approach. This is why I support the community violence prevention programs currently funded by the city through the Office of Violence Prevention Work. They work directly with families and neighborhoods most impacted by gun violence, providing street-level community outreach and conflict mediation, job training, trauma, and mental health support, in addition to other services. I urge you to increase community violence intervention grant funding for community-based organizations in the coming budget. The City of Portland needs to stay the course on violence prevention in order to reduce gun violence. We must increase the funding, at a minimum, keep it at the level it's at. The safety of our community, our children, and all of us depends on it. Thank you so much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. And next we have Andrea.
Hi, my name is Andrea Logren, and I'm a history professor. I live in Northwest Portland, and I'm here today to talk about Rose City Self-Defense. I've been a volunteer instructor with Rose City Self-Defense since 2015, but I'm not even one of the oldest volunteers. We have people in our program who bring more than 20 years of skill and experience, but even our most experienced instructors haven't been around since the beginning. This program was founded in 1979. That's 2 years after I was born. It was part of a nationwide movement to reshape self-defense away from martial arts and towards holistic empowerment of women. Very few of those original programs still exist. Portland's program stands out nationally because of our longevity, which is a direct result of consistent city funding. So thank you for funding this program since 1979. Maybe you don't realize this, but this program is a steal. We have only 2 paid staff, and the rest of the work is done by volunteers. Each volunteer spends 10 hours per month teaching classes. With at least 4 volunteers per class, at minimum, the city would have to pay $600 a month to staff the classes without this group of dedicated and trained volunteers. In 2020, I personally spoke before the City Council representing the volunteers to request to move the program away from the Police Bureau and into Community Safety Division, because we wanted to be able to serve the members of our community who didn't trust the police. After that successful reorganization, a small group of volunteers met weekly during the pandemic, paused in classes, and spent hundreds of hours revising the curriculum to be more inclusive to the most vulnerable members of the Portland community: people of color, sex workers, people with insecure housing, queer folks, and disabled people. But keeping these classes free is the most essential component to making them accessible to everyone. So thank you for considering this program's history, its value, and its inclusivity as you make your budget decisions. Also, I support Portland Street Response. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next 3 testimonies this evening would be by Lenore Zenger, Je Amachi, and Timur Ender. We'll start off with Lenore.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Lenore Zenger. I use her, she pronouns. I'm an ex-marketing professional and I am a mom. I'm here tonight to ask you to please retain funding for Rose City Self-Defense. As Andrea told you, we're a program that's been around since 1979, and with only 2 paid city staff members with a budget of $300,000. We're a very small program in a total budget of $7 billion. Is that right? I guess that is. Those 2 staff members shepherd and instruct and organize 40+ volunteers. And together we have taught, I think, 40,000 women and girls and 100,000 just regular Portland city citizens how to be safe out on the streets at a time when I feel that the vibrancy of our city and public safety are at the fore. This program is a steal with the hundreds of volunteer hours that are leveraged by our 2, I would just call them like kind of like den moms. They really are getting us out there. Next week, I will start teaching at Centennial Middle School during the SUN program. And the reason I do it, and for a year in 2011, I was an admin for Girl Strength when it was called that back then. And now I'm back as a newly minted self-defense instructor because I can remember yelling after my daughter, who's now 22, when she was about 12, and I was saying, goodbye, I love you, have fun, be safe. And then I realized that no one had ever really taken the time to say, these are some things you should know about being safe, not just some platitude like don't take candy from strangers, but really important skills. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. I've been told that Jay is not responding to the invitation to be a panelist, so we'll move on to Timur Ender.
Hi, good evening. My name is Timur Ender, and I am a resident in Hazelwood. And for a lot of people in East Portland, there is just a general lack of trust in city government. This is due to unkept promises and a lack of investment in East Portland. People feel mentally and physically distant from halls of power and where decisions are made. This manifests itself through lower voter turnout, less likely testifying in front of city council, and challenges accessing key city services. A key tenet of our 911 system is having the right response to the right location at the right time. And a fully funded Portland Street Response program is a key part of that. It should not matter what part of the city someone is in, what time of day, or if someone's on the edge of a street versus a sidewalk. For everyday Portlanders, these thresholds are arbitrary. I'm here to advocate for a fully funded Portland Street Response program, 24/7 citywide coverage, and having Portland Street Response be a co-equal branch of the city's public safety infrastructure. Portland Street Response is a key piece of a modern public safety system, and I would hope that our city budget reflect that. Thanks for your time, and sorry about my screen not working.
Thank you. I've been told that Jay has just moved up, so we'll move it over to you, Jay.
Thanks. Apologies for that. Hello, my name is Jay Mechi, and I'm writing as a concerned Portland resident in North Portland. I'm passionate about the future of the city. Our community stands at a pivotal crossroads where the decisions we make today will set the foundation for our city's livability. So there's a pressing need to allocate significant funding towards the development and enhancement of safe multimodal transportation options. And by investing in efficient public transportation, protected bike lanes, and well-maintained pedestrian pathways, we can decrease our reliance on single occupancy vehicles, reduce traffic congestion, and lower greenhouse emissions. Moreover, these improvements will offer equitable access to mobility, connecting more residents to work, education, recreation, regardless of their economic status. Additionally, robust funding for climate action initiatives is crucial. Implementing green infrastructure, promoting renewable energy sources, and enhancing our city's resilience to climate change are vital steps that cannot be delayed. These measures not only protect our city, but also stimulate economic growth, create jobs, and improve public health. Equally important is the expansion of Portland Street Response. This innovative program is vital for addressing nonviolent crises in our community with compassion and specialized care. By funding this program, we can provide a more appropriate response to crises, reducing the burden on our police force and improving outcomes for our most vulnerable citizens. As stewards of the city, you have the unique opportunity to lead with vision and commitment, and I urge you to prioritize these critical areas in our city budget. Let's invest in a future that ensures environmental sustainability and enhances the overall quality of life for all residents. Our actions today will echo in the legacy we leave for future generations. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next testimonies will be by Jennifer Park, Nancy Champlin, and KD Parman. We'll start with Jennifer.
Good evening. Thank you so much, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Park. I use she, they pronouns. I live in the Arbor Lodge neighborhood. I have over 10 years of experience in nonprofit public service, including 6 years in supportive housing, and I am a candidate for Portland City Council in District 2. We need to heal our community's relationship with public safety, and gutting the Portland Street Response model does just the opposite. In this restructuring of our city government, there is no reason to continue to squeeze PSR into the budget of the Fire and Rescue Division with separate and unique emergency priorities. PSR should be established as an autonomous and co-equal division of the Public Safety Service area. I would like to quote the Public Safety Service area requested budget. Portland Police Bureau has struggled to consistently hire at a rate that outpaces attrition. There has been a 50% increase in personnel shortage related overtime, and the reprieve of the otherwise universal 5% budget constraint was given because, quote, it's critical to maintaining the Bureau's ability to respond to 24/7 calls for service. And yet, Portland Police Bureau does not need to share a purse with PSR to meet the community's 24/7 safety needs, despite it being a critical response to the DOJ settlement. Instead of looking at PSR as a financial and budgetary burden on other bureaus, let's look at how amplifying PSR can support the challenges facing the public safety service area as a whole and increase federal funding support at full-time operations. I trust you will find a way to fund PSR at more than the $4 million earmarked, but I implore you to fund it at a level that allows it to operate independently with 24/7 availability. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we'll hear from Nancy.
Good evening, Mayor Wheeler and Commissioners. Thank you for your work as public servants and for taking time tonight to hear my testimony. My name is Nancy Champlin. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm the Executive Director of Southeast Uplift Neighborhood Coalition, one of the 4 nonprofit district coalition offices that are funded through the Office of Community and Civic Life to promote civic engagement in Portland. I'm here on behalf of those who live, work, and play in the neighborhoods that will make up the new District 3 come July 1st. We understand that all bureaus are being asked to absorb a 5% cut, but in the fiscal year 24-25 budget for Civic Life, Southeast Uplift is facing a disproportionate 31% cut in funding. I'm here tonight to ask you to restore a large portion of that. The proposed cut will have a devastating impact on our ability to serve our 20 neighborhood associations, 37 fiscally sponsored organizations, 24 grantees, and the countless other partners, including city bureaus, that work on the front lines every day to uplift the livability of inner Southeast and portions of Northeast Portland. This year marks the 50th anniversary of Portland's neighborhood system that regularly attracts delegations of young leaders from other countries who come to Portland to study our civic engagement infrastructure. As the outgoing city council, before we usher in an exciting new form of representative government, please don't let Southeast Uplift, the District Coalition Program, and the Diversity and Civic Leadership Program wither under your watch. District Coalition offices like Southeast Uplift are not like other nonprofits. We have evolved along with the city since 1974 to serve this very purpose of creating more informed, inclusive, and participatory neighborhoods for everyone's social and ecological well-being. The level of funding that Southeast Uplift has received in this and past budget years is what it takes. Thank you. Please restore $130,000 to Southeast Uplift's budget so we can meet this historic moment. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And next we have Katie Parman.
Hi, City Commissioners and Mayor Wheeler. My name is Dr. Katie Parman. I'm the principal of Roosevelt High School in North Portland, and I'm here to advocate for continued funding for community violence intervention. I've been an educator for 22 years. 18 of those years, I've served the North Portland community as a teacher, a coach, and now an administrator. In the spring of 2021, when we were returning from the pandemic, I connected with our level outreach folks who shared their concerns about the number of youth with far too easy access to weapons and immunity. Between the summer of 2021 and now, we've had 2 students murdered and 6 others injured by gun violence. We've had students whose houses are being shot up, and I unfortunately have lost count of the recent graduates that have been murdered or injured by gun violence. I do know that our Black and Latino students are disproportionately impacted by these shootings. I also know that violence, whether it affects a student directly or not, is having a major impact on all of us out in North Portland. Too many guns. There are kids that have far too easy access to them. I say kids because they are indeed kids, 12, 13, 14-year-olds with guns and other weapons on social media. In our communities, and they're in the hands of our youth. Without intervention, these guns will move through our schools and our communities and continue to cause devastating consequences for our kids, our schools, our teachers, our communities. I'm advocating for the continued funding for key violence intervention programs like level outreach. We need to prioritize long-term good solutions that can impact, like our street outreach workers. These people are connected to our students and understand the different dynamics of youth and how they move through the community. As a city, we need to develop comprehensive long-term strategies that can prevent gun violence and gun deaths, especially in our schools and for our youth. Without funding for these programs, I worry things will only get worse. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Darlene Garrett.
Hi, everyone. My name is Darlene Urban Garrett. I'm the Executive Director of Neighbors West Northwest. As you know, district coalitions serve the neighborhoods, build the capacity of neighborhoods to do their jobs. Your volunteer armies provide a strong, durable infrastructure of people serving this city. The first thing I want to do is some math for you. Neighbors West Northwest, doing business as District 4 Coalition, received in the 24-25 budget $431,486. Last year, serving, and that's to serve 32 neighborhoods. Last year, serving 11 neighborhoods as Neighbors West Northwest, we received $352,663. That's a difference of $78,823. If I use $70,000 for small grants, typically we use $35,000 for small grants. If I use $78,000 or $70,000 for small grants to fund the District 4 Coalition, that leaves me with a total of $8,823 to serve 32 neighborhoods. I don't know how that's a possibility. I want to tell you a little bit about the relevance of your neighborhood associations. In 2023, two neighborhood associations picked up 50,000 pounds of trash, dedicated 12,000, one neighborhood logged on 20,000 volunteer hours. One neighborhood, a destination neighborhood, is actually paying for their private security. Neighborhoods set up your Firewise programs. Neighborhoods develop your net teams. Thousands of volunteer hours went into getting the South Park blocks and registered as a national historic district. One neighborhood raised $18,000 to fight a land use issue. Neighborhoods are.
Thank you. Our next 3 testimonies will be by Jeanette Harrison, Bethany Wofford, and Gail Johnson. We'll start off with Jeanette.
Okay, hi. I'm Jeanette Harrison, and thank you for letting me speak. I am just here to express my support for NAYA, and I was so busy listening to everybody else, I lost my little thing. But you know, there are a lot of there's a lot of written testimony that's coming in for the office that has been proposed a 31% cut, as I understand it. Which is definitely a disproportionate level of cut. And I just want to share a story about the value of programs like NAYA's Youth and Elders Council. I moved here in 2023 from the San Francisco Bay Area, where I ran a theater company called Alter Theater. We had a playwright residency program. And our playwrights began by meeting with a group like NAYA's Youth and Elder Council. And our playwrights got to speak to Native elders in the community and ask them questions, have conversations with them about the issues that were facing their community. It was an incredibly valuable resource. And we spent about 5 meetings over the course of 2 years with this incredible group. And from those 5 meetings, one of our playwrights went on to become the first Native American playwright ever produced off Broadway. These little tiny investments that we make in programs like this in support of our most under-resourced communities have a huge impact. Somebody else earlier today testified about the return on investment for the arts. And I just want to point out from my very personal experience, the impact of programs like the Native American Youth and Family Centers LEAD program and the Youth and Elder Council. So thank you very much. And good luck.
Thank you. And next we have Bethany Wofford.
Hello, I'm Bethany Wofford. Thank you for letting me speak. I'm a parent and I live in the Woodlawn neighborhood for the past 15 years. Every day in my neighborhood, I see memorials for individuals killed by guns in the past few years, and my heart breaks for their families. There is a map in my head of all the places I know that gun violence has impacted my community. And every time I let my 11-year-old daughter walk to a friend's house, that map lights up and I cannot turn off the alert until she is safely home. We should not have to live like this. In January 2022, Isaiah Hurst was killed with a gun on a Sunday morning in our neighborhood on a street where I know students from our elementary school live. Previous to his murder, I was deeply upset by the gun violence and deaths on the streets surrounding our home, but something about this horrific act of violence was the last straw for me. I became involved as a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and I've learned so much since then about the organizations in Portland working tirelessly to stop the violence and help people change their lives. As a former social worker, I know that the research and evidence supports the direct intervention strategies used by these groups. Seeing this work and the impact it has are what gives me hope today, and quite frankly, keeps me in Portland. I believe this work contributes mightily to the 16% drop in homicides last year compared to 2022. However, the 2023 homicide rate in Portland was still 5 times as high as it was in 2016, and that is not acceptable. These organizations cannot continue to be effective in their work if they're constantly at risk of losing funding. Losing funding means losing staff, and the staff are individuals who are at the heart of their success. These credible messengers are able to connect with those at risk for gun violence, especially young people, in a way that should be uplifted and valued by our community. A budget is an expression of our values as a community. Let's invest our funds in the people and organizations who are turning us around from the violence that has caused people I know to flee this city. Please prioritize the Office of Violence Prevention and their programs in this budget. Thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Gail Johnson.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Gail Johnson, and I live in the Northeast Portland area, and I'm speaking in support of fully funding and expanding the Portland Street Response Program. Portland University evaluated the program during its first 2 years and concluded, Portland Street Response continues to demonstrate success in meeting its outcome goals of reducing police and fire response to non-emergency calls and calls involving people experiencing mental health or behavioral health crises. From my perspective, this was achieved despite the typical challenges of implementing a new program. It succeeded despite its inadequate funding. It succeeded despite the loss of its champion on the city council. It succeeded during the pandemic when everything was just plain harder. That it worked as well as it did speaks to the efficacy of this program. While PSR cannot correct the underlying causes of the problems that we're experiencing in Portland, it does work in helping people who need assistance when they are most vulnerable. So I ask the council, why not fully fund a needed government program that works? Thank you.
Thank you. Just a quick announcement, if anyone else is here with the intention of giving the testimony and has yet to be called, I have 3 more on my list, but we just want to make sure that we get to everyone. So if you haven't been called, please raise your hand and we'll see what we can do. Our next 3 would be Nohamin Aiden, Thomas Shervy, and Emily Domerk. We'll start off with Nohamin.
Mayor Wheeler and members of Portland City Council, my name is Nohamin Aiden and I live in the Multnomah neighborhood. I am the Deputy Director of Unite Oregon, a membership-based nonprofit organization that serves BIPOC immigrant and refugee communities. I'm here today on behalf of myself and Unite Oregon members to urge you to fund the Office of Civic Lives, Diversity and Civic Leadership Program, DCL for short, and to fully fund and expand the Portland Street Response. For almost 20 years, the DCL program has funded skill building and advocacy training for the immigrant and refugee communities. I am a graduate of such program, the Pan Immigrant Leadership and Organizing Training Program called Pilot. My involvement in community organizing and civic leadership was made possible by this investment. Cutting this program will leave a gap in critical leadership development programming that has helped so many in our communities engage and inform important decisions that impact all of our communities. Pilot graduates like myself have gone on to serve on many critical roles in our communities. In addition to serving at the City of Portland and in the mayor and commissioner offices, we have served on countless advisory boards, run nonprofits, and became business owners. For many of us, this began with our participation in Pilot. We ask our City Council to honor its commitment to uplift the voices of our BIPOC immigrant and refugee communities in civic life. Please remember the purpose of this program and its longstanding place in Portland civic leadership work. At a time when our demographics of the city continue to shift, now more than ever, we must sustain funding for this program and the other critical leadership development programs it supports. To this end, we support Program Street Response, as this has been a critical program that aligns with our vision of reimagining community safety. Thank you for taking the time today. I urge you to fully fund these 2 programs that I spoke on.
Thank you. And next, Thomas, the floor is yours.
Hi, my name is Thomas Shervy. I live in Hazelwood in Outer East Portland, and I'm here today to ask you to fully fund Portland Street Response. I live in Outer East Portland, an area that has traditionally been ignored and underrepresented in our city government. And just from 122nd to 148th, I can count on more than one hand the times I would have wanted to call Portland Street Response for someone having a mental health crisis, but it was after hours for them. Mental health crises don't just stop at 7 o'clock p.m. They happen 24/7, and police response is not always needed. What is needed is Portland Street Response. People that I work with, my friends, my family, all urge me to tell you, please fund Portland Street Response. I will yield the rest of my time, but I would like you to think about the silence that the people that needed help heard on the phone because they weren't funded. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, and our final testimony will be by Emily Domerk.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Emily Dumerick, and I have lived for the past 11 years in the Park Rose Argate neighborhood. 2 years ago, the mayor declared a state of emergency for gun violence in our city, and I have seen and felt and heard that violence in my neighborhood increase drastically in the last 5 years. We have seen homicide rates come down in the last year, and that is primarily due to the critical work being done by community violence intervention groups. You've heard from several of those members in past listening sessions, and the work that they are doing is critical in continuing to see homicides go down in Portland. We must stop violence at the root before we see the direct impacts of it. Gun violence not only affects those who are struck by bullets, but it ripples out to the broader community around them, their family, their friends, people like me who live in the neighborhood and hear gunshots going off practically all summer long in my neighborhood. It is traumatizing for my kids, traumatizing for my neighbors. It is not make us feel like we are living in a safe city. We know that community violence intervention groups are having a positive impact. The data coming out of OHSU's Office of Gun Violence Prevention Office is very clear. CVI groups are having an impact. I urge you to expand your definition of public safety and include CVI into that budget. You're not cutting the budget for the police or the firemen, and I encourage you to include the Office of Violence Prevention into those categories. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And with that, that concludes our open testimony for this evening. And so I'll hand it back to my colleague, Jen.
Thank you so much, Jeremiah. And thank you for members of the public for providing testimony this evening. Next part of our agenda is our closing comments from council. And so we'll start in order with Commissioner Ryan.
Thank you, Jen. And first of all, thank you so much to the testimony we received tonight and also this past Saturday and this past Wednesday. Please know that you've definitely amplified a few key themes. And because of that, those will receive some extra attention. And I know that we all appreciate it. And we really appreciate your time and your commitment to the city. I also want to start off by saying I really did hear you, Mayor. I heard you on Saturday. I hear you today that this is a tough budget. It's my fourth one. There's nothing to compare to it from the first three. It's the spigot has been turned off from on high when it comes to COVID relief dollars. And unfortunately, the revenues coming in are also going down. We're having some tax-based challenges. And the truth is there's going to be some constraints. That means we have an opportunity to be more creative, and there's no time better to do that than when we're moving into a new form of government. So needs to be a lot of creativity as we look forward, not in the rearview mirror. I even want to mention the slides where we talked about all the different bureaus. We're moving into a time where we're moving into work areas. So with that should come some creative opportunities to look at some efficiencies. And I hope that we take advantage of that, not 2 years from now, but now. And so I also want to acknowledge what's been said by actually the last person who testified. And I know for me on Saturday, it became really clear that as a council, we need to have dialogue about that definition of public safety. There are beyond police and beyond fire, whether it's Portland Street Response, whether it's Rose City Self-Defense, the Office of Violence Prevention, the Park Rangers, it's a list that also provide safety for our community. If in fact we decide that that's part of the definition, then those could be held at whole, but then we have to look at the constraints going deeper into some that are not under that category. We also know that, and I was pleased to hear someone mention the importance of permits. It's a very wonky issue. I got it started with Commissioner Mapps. Rubio picked it up and drove it. And this is a council that really wants to unify the system and make it more efficient. at a time that we're building that, and it's tough to build, is not the time to cut some of those key positions that are necessary for those efficiencies to be gained, and therefore for building to improve and for more people wanting to do business with the city of Portland. It's a tough time to do business in general, but especially in the city of Portland. And this is our way of working with those investors who we need desperately at this time. Again, back to the need for revenue. So I really appreciate the dialogue that's been coming from these sessions about rethinking community safety. And I look forward to that. Let's see, a couple other things is as we're building this new form of government, we have some challenges with the transition. We should be having challenges. It's hard. This is hard work. And we're going to make some mistakes, but it's really important for us to not have duplicate systems at this time. We have to have the strength and the courage to let go of some of our systems as we build into the new ones. I think that the people who have showed up, they've talked about the services for neighborhoods as we go to this 4-district model, have definitely impacted me. And I do want to go look deeper into that. I know when I got the assignment for 1 year at the beginning of 2023, I really wanted to heal in 1 year's time the relationship with the neighborhood associations, which for 6 years received a lack of support from city council. And we do know that that is an important ingredient of our city from the grassroots up in the neighborhoods. And the good news is over those 6 years, we included more renters and more organizations as a part of those neighborhood systems. That's an and equation. So now we must need to support that work. And so with that, there's some constraints involved, but there's also some creativity imagined here. And so I look forward to hearing what that creative operations can look like so that we can continue to provide support for our neighborhood associations in what should be and will be a different form of government that's closer to the people. So we must make sure that we have that in effect. So I look forward to the conversations that are going to be difficult and hard. I look forward to the creativity that we come up with. I look forward to continuing to amplify something that someone did mention, so I have to myself, which is the arts are a part of the system. They are part of economic development, and I'm really grateful that more people are bringing that up. But the truth is, we're under constraints. It's time to buckle up. It's time for us to be bigger and bolder than we've ever been as we move forward here in the city of Portland. Thanks so much for your time and your attention. I'm so glad that we did this at the beginning process of our budget. It really is helpful to do the engagement on the front end. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for knowing that's the way to do it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Gonzalez.
Well, thank you. I'm going to keep my camera off given bandwidth issues here, but I just want to thank so many citizens that engaged in this process. It is insightful. I'm going to reiterate some pieces that the mayor kicked off with and Commissioner Ryan just hit on, in particular, the reliance on one-time money, and that's soon to be burned off for a number of really loved programs in the city. That is a challenge, particularly in public safety and in some of our other interventions that have been creative in recent years. It is an immense challenge in this budget cycle. I want to, at the same time, just acknowledge the deep felt and compassion felt for many of those programs that have touched Portlanders. I think that the view of how we respond to a public safety crisis or multiple crises is reflected in some of the comments. I don't necessarily need to go too deep on any of those right now. Occasionally I'm troubled with the characterization of how police is too engaged with our community and what assumptions are made there. But I think that's a longer, broader conversation. I did appreciate also the conversations from the neighborhood associations. I've also learned more about that, just hearing from citizens in this process. Again, I don't want to gloss over the many comments on public safety we've heard on all nooks and crannies in this process. But in the interest of getting your evening, I'll conclude there. I just want to again acknowledge and appreciate all your comments tonight.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Maps.
Oh, well, I want to start off by thanking everyone who testified tonight. In what is becoming a trend, the quality of testimony was excellent. And I think we are also seeing some trends in terms of the issues that people are concerned about. As in our previous two sessions, I heard the bulk of our testimony fall into three buckets: public safety, support for programs that support community engagement, and concern about staffing levels for elected officials under our new form of government. And I have some reflections on each of those three issues. Obviously, the overwhelming amount of testimony that we got today was around public safety, specifically PSR. We also heard support for violence prevention programs, Rose City Defense, and fire. I consider all four of those to be part of our public safety system. I think they've all proven to be incredibly effective. And as we go through this budget process, I want to tell my colleagues and the people of Portland that I will be advocating for those programs. And I want to share a little anecdote as to why. I'll tell you, since we have been in session this evening, I got an email from my kid's principal. He's in high school, a freshman. And the reason why they sent out an email is because earlier this afternoon, gunshots were heard near my kid's campus. Good news, everybody. All the kids are fine. But it is a reminder that gun violence can touch any of us at any time and does far too often. That's why when we go through and decide how to allocate our scarce resources, I'll be looking very closely at gun violence and violence prevention programs and other programs that help keep people safe. The other bucket that we heard a lot of testimony about is support for community engagement programs, specifically those that historically were in civic life, the Diversity and Civic Leadership Program, and support for neighborhood coalitions. I'll tell you, both of those programs are close to my heart. For those of you who know me, know that before I was elected to council, I was a city employee over at the old Office of Civic Life. And in that role, I helped run the crime prevention program and the city's neighborhood association program. You know, I embrace that work because I believe it's some of the most important work being done in the city. I know the important bridge that the Diversity and Civic Leadership Program does in terms of bringing new Portlanders into our democratic dialogue. And as a guy who literally used to run the neighborhood association system, I fully get the challenge that our neighborhood coalitions are in. Colleagues, I do have one thought about the neighborhood coalition issue. It seems to me like first, let's start out with the baseline. There's not enough dollars going into the system in general. I also have some questions about the funding formula that we're using to fund neighborhood coalitions. Right now, I think the proposal is to fund each of the four coalitions equally, which kind of ignores the underlying population base there. I believe historically, if my memory serves correctly, in the past, we have funded neighborhood coalitions based on population. I haven't seen an analysis of what that would look like for this coming fiscal year, but it's an analysis I would sure like to hear. The third bucket of testimony that we heard today were some actually very compelling arguments by very thoughtful people who argued that the proposals on the table do not provide enough staffing for the elected officials who will serve under our new form of government. And I will tell you, as a person who serves in City Hall, that insight is correct. The staffing that's proposed for incoming members of City Council will not be nearly adequate to do the job that they are going to be asked to do. At the same time, I think it's important to recognize that this council is in a tough spot. We don't have enough resources to go around. And basically, our funding can either go to administrative costs or direct services. Again, as I've said before, my bias as we go about allocating resources will be to funnel as many dollars as possible to direct resources. Doesn't mean that I'm not open to reimagining how we go about staffing our next form of government, but I do think that with so many Portlanders hurting, doing everything that we can to make sure that we directly aid people is incredibly important. And I want to, as I move towards the end of my comments, I do want to reflect on this. One of the things that often happens in budget listening sessions like this is that there's kind of an underlying assumption that there are new dollars on the table, and really the budgeting exercise is to decide where we allocate these new dollars. That is not actually what's happening this year. The mayor, as we heard in our opening budget overview, there are no new dollars going into the next fiscal year. Indeed, with rising costs, we need to make significant cuts. The mayor has told us that even if we cut 5% from all of our non-public safety bureaus, we still are about $20 million away from a balanced budget. And figuring out, frankly, which of our programs, and all of them, or the vast majority of them are incredibly important, are going to shrink is really what this exercise is about. I also want to make an observation. This is our third listening session. I estimate that we probably heard from about 80 Portlanders so far. Tonight's testimony is unique, though, in that this is the first time that we've heard members of the public offer some suggestions about where we could find some cost savings. So I want to call out and express my appreciation to Terry, who suggested that we cut administrative costs associated with public safety. I am not quite sure what that would actually mean for the police bureau or fire or PSR, but frankly, really what we're trying to do is figure out where we take cuts. That was very helpful. Terry also suggested that we cut the number of deputy city administrators. In some cases, I think that makes sense, and in some cases, I think that'll be challenging. You know, I'll tell you, over in the public workspace, you have 3 very large bureaus that are incredibly complicated. Frankly, I am confident that our deputy city administrators in those spaces will be overwhelmed with the amount of work and the amount of territory they're expected to cover. Terry also speculated that we should, as we go into the new form of government through consolidation, we should find some efficiencies. Terry, I want you to know that I'm absolutely confident that over the medium term and long term, that will be true. But as I move towards this new form of government, figuring out how to make public works work under this new system, so far, it's demanding new resources of the order of millions of dollars coming out of water, BES, and PBOT. I think eventually, maybe even over the course of, by the time we get to the end of the next fiscal year, we'll be in a position to sort of capture some efficiencies there. But that is not where we're at this morning or this afternoon. And finally, I want to call out Zach and Juliet, who suggested that we cut some of the district offices that are out there. And I'll confess, I was an advocate for standing up those district offices, but given the choice of cutting direct services or standing up new district offices, which may or may not meet the needs of our future city councilors, I'm really open to that possibility. I want to close by saying I appreciate everyone's feedback today. I think we have some fresh ideas on the table, and I will also close by acknowledging and thanking our ASL translators who have been working awfully hard tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Commissioner Rubio.
Thanks again to everyone who testified today and over the last week. I really appreciate the time and energy that it takes to come out after work and advocate for the things that are really important to you. Your comments are incredibly helpful to us, to me personally, especially as we dig in and think about what we're prioritizing, not only for this budget, but for the rest of our time in 2024, and then also into the new year with the new form of government. And as already others have said, in particularly, it's going to be important because we're in a year of budget cuts. So there are several themes that I heard today. A lot of the priorities that I heard include safety and essential city services for this budget, and they also align with things that I particularly am very concerned about and support. So I'll just run through them quickly. You've already heard a lot from my other colleagues, but prioritizing public safety programs and all public safety first responders, and also specifically support for maintaining and fully funding for Portland Street Response. Also Rose City Self-Defense Program, which is an excellent program for women, girls, and non-binary people, and also prioritizing gun violence prevention programs that save lives, and also support and maintaining funding for the DCL programs and the District Coalition. And these are two unique points of access that have produced a lot of, or thousands actually, of civically engaged communities that otherwise would not have had access. And during this transition time, it's going to be very critical that we have all avenues accessible for community. And then finally, something very important to me, well, two things, of course, prioritizing a successful government transition. There were a lot of really great recommendations, and like my colleague just mentioned, I really appreciate the really thoughtful critiques and comments offered around this. And I'll be thinking about those. And then finally, sustaining critical permitting and development services and staff so that we're able to be responsive and continue to make the reforms that we need for a more effective permitting system, which in turn will help us tackle the housing crisis by reaching that huge daunting goal of producing 120,000 new units over the next 20 years. So to me, these are all really critical priorities that ought to be viewed as a part of our essential basic city services. And it will be a challenge, again, because of our constraints, but I'm glad that a lot of you came in or testified and are meeting with us to make sure that we're accountable to these priorities and values that matter. So with these things, they'll all be top of mind for me moving forward. And I just want to give an appreciation to Mayor Wheeler for setting up these meetings and for the work that his team and the budget office is doing to dig in and to get us to this point, and also the next steps in the process. So thanks again to everyone for taking the time to be here tonight.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mayor Wheeler.
Yes, very good. First of all, one of my favorite quotes of all time is FDR: be sincere, be brief, and then be seated. And I think we're probably all starving at this point, would love to eat our dinners. I'm starting. You probably need to get to it too. I want to start by thanking Jen. Thank you for being an exceptional moderator. I want to thank our ASL interpreters who've been working hard tonight. We've got Maria, we've had Kevin on as well. Thank you for that. Of course, thank you everybody for your testimony. My overlaying thoughts as I craft the proposed budget are these. The priorities that we have been focused on are addressing the homeless crisis in our community, addressing public safety in our community, addressing the economic recovery and livability related issues in our city. And to that end, we've actually reinvented our city government. When it comes to public safety, a number of you mentioned gun violence. We created the focused intervention team. We created the enhanced community safety team. Those are police responses. But we've also created the ceasefire program here in Portland, which is a community-based model. When it comes to homelessness, we've created the Safe Rest Village sites. We've created the new task sites. Now, everybody who goes into one of those city sanctioned sites is assigned a navigator. They're connected to services, whether it's behavioral health, substance use disorder, domestic violence, job training, whatever it is, they are receiving services prior to being navigated to housing that's reserved for that population. When it comes to livability, we of course have expanded the impact reduction program, but I think more importantly, we created the Portland Office of Environmental Management, which addresses litter and graffiti, something that people in the neighborhoods, every neighborhood in this community, have been deeply, deeply concerned about. And of course, my colleagues and I have stood up many programs around the overall recovery of our economy. The one I'm most excited about is one you're going to hear about in the coming weeks. It is called Portland Solutions. It's an expansion of a program that we created about a year and a half ago, our 90-day resets. Portland Solutions will address all of these combined issues citywide. This is something my administration and I have been working on very hard for many, many months. I'm pleased that the Portland Central City Task Force convened by the governor seems very supportive of this strategy that we've developed at the city level. It will continue to be a priority of mine for the remaining months I have as mayor. I want to thank everybody for their feedback tonight. I won't reiterate everything I heard. You were all here. You all heard it. I took plenty of notes. My staff is here. We collectively took plenty of notes. And I look forward to your continued participation as this budget process unfolds. Jen, back to you. Close us out.
Wonderful. So just a quick explanation of our next steps. We have 2 upcoming meetings. The next one will be Thursday, May 9th from 2 to 5 p.m. And that's the mayor's proposed budget hearing. Following on Wednesday, May 15th from 2 to 5 p.m. will be the approved budget hearing. And of course, at any time you can submit testimony online at portland.gov/CBO or by emailing testimony at budgetcomment@portlandoregon.gov. And all of that testimony is forwarded to council offices. And with that, I will send it back to you, Mayor Wheeler, to adjourn us.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your evening. We're adjourned.